Hi, I'm Scott Weldy.
And this is Dan Goldbacher, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
You go ahead, Dave. Drive the bus.
Well, first off, guys, thanks for coming on the show. I think it's a fun opportunity to talk about the work that you're doing and what you're doing for the community. And, questions and comments and conversations is what the show's about, just kind of showing off what's going on. So, first off, I think the thing that's really important is explain to us what is the Orange County Bird of Prey Center and what does it do?
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit here in Orange County. We focus on the rehab and rehabilitation of wild raptors in Orange County. So we're talking about eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, and releasing them back into the wild. So our big focus is getting these birds that get injured for whatever reason, and then getting them back out into the wild, into their native habitat. But then we also focus on education, so reaching the public. Last year, we were able to get to about 18,000 people. And being able to spread the word about the importance of the raptor conservation.
Nice. Give us, Scott, you and I go a long way with the Bird of Prey Center, but it goes back even beyond that. So how about some history of the Bird of Prey Center? How did it start? What I know a lot of the history of like what has gone on with it to keep it going and all that kind of stuff, but tell us the story of like whose ideas was it and how it got rolling and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I graduated in 1985 from vet school. And when I got out of school from 85 to 86, I was trying to figure out my little niche in the world. And I was interested in everything. So I started reaching out to a lot of the rehab centers and to the sanctuaries and to animal controls and stuff, and just telling them I'll help them in any way they want. And I ran into a lady named Marge Gibson who lived in Villa Park. And Marge had the Orange County Bird of Prey Center, and she was running it out of a bunch of flight cages on her property in Villa Park. And so I started helping her and doing a lot of her veterinary work. And there were Hannah Stoddard was doing some, and there was a number of people that were doing some of the work for her. And we just became very, very good friends. And in 1990, she decided to go back to her state of origin, which was Wisconsin. And so she decided she and her husband were going to move back there. And so they took all their knowledge and stuff and left me the Bird of Prey Center. So we went over and cut up all the old mews and reconstructed them in a friend of mine named Betty Milan. And Betty was a retired school teacher in Lake Forest. And she, at that time, she helped me put up the whole flight cages in her backyard. And then we started the center there. And it was basically she and I. And then we got some volunteers here and there, and we slowly built it up. And that's where people like Peggy Chase and then came into the group. And we ended up with having the center there for a number of years until we moved it up to Rancho Las Lomas. And we occupied, after talking to the owner there, he let me have a corner of the property to put up everything. And so we did that until we moved to the place we're at right now.
Nice. I remember those mews in the backyard. I used to go in, you and I created the Bird of Prey program for the Department of Education for Inside the Outdoors. And I was the main person for that. And I remember going in, creeping around her backyard, catching birds to take to schools at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I did it regularly. It was kind of funny. I have some unique stories about, trying to catch the one education great horned owl in the flight pens, with all the wild ones jumping on my head.
And it was a little bit, it's a lot more refined than it was then. So it's a whole lot more refined and a whole lot safer for the birds and for us. And we're actually becoming an A+ our organization, which is good. And that's where Dan's going to take off from there and lead us on.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the new facility. I actually toured it. I don't know, it was like a year ago or something, and it's gorgeous. It looks really nice. So can you describe a little bit of that?
Dan, you want to do that?
Yeah, I think not enough can be said about what Scott and everybody that's come before has done to build this place, though. It's really remarkable, and we're looking forward to taking it to the next level. I started about 4 months ago now. I've been very excited about the opportunities that we have in front of us. We're on about 2 acres on Orange County Park property. We got a great lease with them. They're absolutely wonderful partners. And we've been at that site for almost 5 years now, I believe. So got there about 2020 and, built a really great facility there, but we're looking to expand it. Right now, we have Great Flight Mew, which is a spot where the birds have the ability to, when they come to us from Scott, they have the ability to rehab before they're getting released to make sure they have their strength built up. We have a great husbandry department, along with all of our volunteers that take care of the birds, get them ready to get back out there into the wild. And we have a great spot for education flight mews, where our non-releasable birds that we take out to the school programs and to the public events stay and get taken care of by our volunteers. But we're looking to expand on that. Right now, we're in the process, and we're going to get the ball rolling here really soon. I'm working on getting a few bids right now for an expansion project. So as of right now, I keep calling it phase 2 of a 3-phase project. So that includes building a brand new flight mew, and it's actually a banked flight mew. So it gives the birds an extra ability to turn and get that extra level of exercise beforehand. So whenever people come on site, I always tell them we're kind of like the PT clinic for these birds. We're the spot where these birds, go right before they get back to normal. So it's really important work for us to do that. And this banked flight mew is the first step to getting us to that A+ level. I've been talking to a lot of rehab organizations since I've taken over, learning a lot about how they operate and learning how we can kind of set ourselves to be the standard that all these other rehab centers look at. So really excited about that project. Hoping to be able to break ground in the next 6 months to be able to put that on our site. We've raised the money for that. Scott and our team, Peggy Chase, who is the executive director before me, were able to raise the money through the Ross Camp Family Foundation, who is an absolutely amazing family that have supported us for a long time. We've built a great relationship with them. We actually just had the kids in yesterday to do a release of a red-tailed hawk with us. So they were excited about seeing what we're doing and the next phase we're going into. So we're really excited about that. And then within the next year or so, we want to start our phase 3 of that project, which is actually building an amphitheater on our site as well. So my background, I come from an experiential and outdoor education background. So I have a really strong passion for that. To be honest, the wildlife rehab is very new to me, so I'm learning a lot about it. Luckily, I have great mentors to kind of show me the ropes, including Scott, and teach me what's important about that. But building the education side, I think, is going to be vital for when we take that next step. The more people we reach, the more people can learn about the importance of these birds that are all around them, is going to be that next step. So we're going to be building about a 300-person amphitheater on site, with some interactive exhibits, some signage, teaching people about the importance of these birds, and being able to bring people on site. Like I said earlier, we go out to the public right now. We do all remote programming, and we've done an absolutely amazing job with that. Our 12 birds that we have doing those programs do a great job. Our husbandry team, again, does a phenomenal job at getting our volunteers and everybody ready to go out and teach different people in all these different areas. We go to hotels, we go to resorts, but then we go to schools. We reach Title I schools, so underfunded communities. We want to get to those people and tell them what we're doing and the importance of these birds that are in their backyard. So I always say, that day that first bus rolls down and parks in our spot and we have kids jump off, I'm going to definitely cry a little bit because I'm very excited about that. This past year, we were able to raise some money to be able to completely fund Title I schools as well. So right now, that's going to be going out to those schools and showing them these birds up close. You see a red-tailed hawk all the time, everywhere you go. Every time you drive down the road, you see one of these hawks, but you don't really think about them. So being able to see one of those birds up close, there's no better teaching tool than that. And it'll help these kids get a better appreciation for the nature around them and, help them be better stewards of the environment, I think, for sure.
So let me ask some questions. What is the current carrying capacity of the bird of prey center? Like on average, how many birds are you treating a year?
So last year was a pretty busy year, and Scott, please correct me if I'm wrong on that, but we had about 320 birds that came on site, and we successfully released 200 birds back into the wild. Okay. But I know last year was a pretty busy year with the rains. The birds had a lot of chicks that were, coming in, more birds that are born, more birds that have the potential of getting injured. So they come to us, and then we release them back into the wild. So as of right now, that's about our max. And this banked flight mew, the design we're working on right now is actually it's an oval shape or an octagon shape, really, where we can compartmentalize it. So It's really nice design because it has, different abilities. So ability number one, we can have this big circle, big racetrack that the birds can go around, really get that turning radius in, but then we can also compartmentalize that. So if we have, a really busy season where we have a lot of birds, we can actually set up dividers inside of that mew to be able to put different species in different areas. So it'll increase our capacity for the birds we can actually have on site at a given time, but then also increase our ability to rehab the birds more effectively.
So what are the in Orange County, California, what species are we talking about? What are the most common? You mentioned red-tailed hawks are everywhere, which I agree. They're all over the place. But what else? Like, give us, the listeners, some more examples of, what different species we're commonly going through and rehabbing in this area.
I'm going to turn that one to the man with a lot of experience and a lot of expertise.
So I would tell you that probably the numbers will fluctuate depending on what season it is. So our baby season, we're going to get a lot of babies. And a lot of times they're owls is what we get a lot of. And then we get red-shouldered hawks and red-tailed hawks. But we'll get barn owls. A lot of barn owls come in. And then great horns, not so many, but we get a fair number of those. And then throughout the year, especially during the migration time, it's the spring and the fall, when they're setting up nests, you'll get birds that are coming down and they'll get injured. So that's when we get a lot of the adult red tails and the adult birds that are flying down, and we'll get the occasional osprey, occasional kite. Especially those are usually they're kind of random, but the kites we usually get are mostly from jumping out and learning to fly and in nest sites, and they get picked up or hurt, picked up by Good Samaritans or hurt and brought into us. So it does vary, but I'll tell you the cage that gets the fullest is more full than any other cage, and more consistently full is going to be our Cooper's hawks. Those guys are the ones that we see tons of Cooper's hawks, because our environment here, they live in areas that are heavily treed and bushes and stuff like that. And that's what all these, 20 and 30 and 40 and 50-year-old housing tracts are providing, is their little forests, and everybody puts out a little bird feeder, and that's like a free McDonald's. And so then all the birds, the Cooper's hawks just hunt the backyards of these houses, and they make a killing, no pun intended, on the real estate there for there and there.
Yeah, kind of a funny thing is I used to always put my bird feeders up when it was raining, and my wife would always be like, "Oh, that's so nice, you're feeding the bird." I go, "No, I'm just trying to get food for the Cooper's hawks." And it worked every time.
You're still feeding the bird, right?
Right? Yeah, I just think it's funny.
Selective what birds you're feeding. Yes. But remember, I always call birds of prey, they're sharks with wings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They don't miss an opportunity, and if they do, they don't miss it the second time. That's for sure.
And the Coopers, they're so cool because they're the short-winged hawks. So they like literally will cut through the trees really fast. They'll be below a fence line, pop up right over the fence, and just nail something. And they don't even see it coming. And to watch that is a lot of fun. And so I would always kind of set up the situation for that to happen in my yard, which people may think I'm weird, but I am. So, yeah. So how about some rare species? What, we get a lot, we're in the migratory pathway for the Pacific Flyway, and there are rare things that come through. I know sometimes we get, short-eared owls or long-eared owls coming through, or we'll get peregrines, and a lot of them are residents now too. But what kind of rare and fun, unique species have you guys come across?
We had a ferruginous owl a few years back, which is
Wow.
migrating to Mexico. I'd never seen one in my life, and we've had one of those. I've had a few saw-whet owls, the little teeny guys that
Okay.
they're like all face and big yellow eyes and all attitude. They're like pit bulls. They're just powerful little things, but they think that, I don't mean pit bulls in a bad way. They're just bold as ever, and they're very, very. They'll fly at you trying to hurt you, and they're only this tall. Like they fly. They're like this tall. They're not very big.
Yeah.
And then we had zone tail and broadwing. Those two, we've had a couple of those. I've had ferruginous and Swansons and can't think of the other one I'm thinking of, but I know what it looks like. But anyways, I've had those, but I haven't seen a ferruginous or a Swanson in quite a while.
Yeah, occasionally here in Irvine, we see zone tail hawks flying around, but the Swainson's hawks and ferruginous, like I think the last time I saw a ferruginous hawk was out in the Antelope Valley, so but not here in Orange County. So yeah.
And rough leg hawk is the other one I was thinking of. I've seen rough legs come through, but not very often. So, and then obviously, every once in a while, like the snowy owl, that didn't come to us, but you get flybys that come in and for whatever reason. We do get peregrines, and we get prairies, we get merlins.
Yeah,
they're all the three falcons. Not very commonly, but we do get those. And then we get, during migration time, we'll get the sharp-shinned hawk, which is like a miniature Cooper's hawk with a nice, like they don't really have a neck, and just head is on their body, so they're pretty easy to spot. But they're tiny.
Yeah.
But they're another example, like Cooper's hawks.
Do you ever get goshawks coming through?
Never had a goshawk come through here. I've had them. I picked up a few that were lost falconer birds, and that kind of stuff, but not really. We get same thing with Harris hawks. I've never seen a wild one come through here, but we definitely have seen falconers birds with Harris hawks, and then occasional golden eagle and occasional bald eagle, but those are not very common in our area.
Yeah. Awesome. So both of you are doing all this work to preserve these birds, and obviously the species range is really big. Why is it important why are you investing all this time and energy and money and passion into these particular birds? Like what value is it within the ecological role, for the environment or for the functionality of our ecosystems?
The main reason I do is just because I have passion for every animal, and these guys are apex predators, basically. So they are influenced by a lot. They are a good indicator of our evolution, I guess I would say, and how the world is doing, because they're an apex predator. So when you start losing apex predators, that means the foundation of the house they're living on top of is crumbling. So, and they're just cool. I've always liked predators, and so this is just something that needs somebody to take care of. There's a lot of people that have the skill and expertise and the space to take care of the other birds and other mammal species and so forth. But the predators, the high-end predators, mountain lions, jaguars, in different places, not here, jaguars, but I mean mountain lions and bobcats and eagles and hawks and stuff like that. It takes there's a lot more effort and a lot more control and a lot more work that has to be done on those. So that just seemed to be the ones we fell in love with.
So they're indicator species, and they can indicate when there's issues in the environment. You as a veterinarian, what have you come across times when you're like, oh wow, like this is an abnormally high number of these birds experiencing this, and then like have you ever then been able to identify what some of the environmental conditions were or the problems that were causing that? What do you see as probably the most detrimental things to the survival of the birds?
Well, right now there's some work done by Pete Bloom being done right now on vultures, because they're like dinosaurs that don't die, and nothing really kills them. and they've had an abnormal number of them dying recently, and so they're still investigating that right now. So
Okay.
that there's something going on. That, I mean, we're talking about 5 to 8 birds on their nighttime roosting being found dead in the morning on the ground.
Wow.
All at the same day. So that happens. But, you know, when we had the droughts, you don't see a lot of baby birds. We had 10, 20 years ago when we were having that, we've had lots of droughts, but they go on for a couple of years. And I remember Pete DeSimone's telling us at Star Ranch that, you know, they couldn't even get their normal barn owl population, their residents, to breed and succeed. And then we had all this rain and stuff last year, and the population of insects and plants and rodents went up, and what followed them? All the hawks and stuff. So also we had this, you know, bumper crop of things. So, you know, it is, and they lag behind it. So they're always a little bit behind everything else. So it's amazing to see, just when you start looking at this, there's tons of data being generated, and all of that is going to help us, whether we're living, you know, it's going to help us manage ourselves and living with these animals, but it's also going to allow us to manage the other animals around here. And it just adds to the knowledge base that we have, and people can take that and then they can do better. And they can do better when they're designing things and looking at, just like water runoff and things like that. I mean, you know, we need to store this, or we need to let this go. You know, there's a lot of things that you can get out of this. So it's important.
Yeah. It's interesting. I grew up in Orange County. I've been here my whole life, and I've seen, you know, the growth of the urban population in Orange County, and it's changed the landscape dramatically. And I don't have any evidence of this, but I think it's actually shifted even certain species. When I was young, when I was in my teenage years, like, you could see American kestrels, which are small North American falcons, and you would see them at every schoolyard. And literally, we would go out and we'd feed them, and they'd be on the baseball, you know, backstops at every single school. There'd be a pair of them. And now I don't see kestrels much anymore. Every now and then you're going to see a little spot where there'll be one, or one will migrate through occasionally. And I feel like because, you know, you mentioned that urban forest area within the neighborhoods, I think the Cooper's hawks have really come in and kind of pushed the kestrels out of these neighborhoods. And, you know, those kinds of changes that, you know, the data over long periods of time can kind of daylight those changes of what's happening within the populations and that kind of stuff. It's just interesting. And I don't have any evidence of it, but I can tell you, I see a lot more Cooper's hawks now than I did when I was young. And I see a lot less kestrels now than I did when I was young. So
you're right, David. There was a big switch. I remember we used to get, you know, 3 to 5 Cooper's hawks a year. And now during baby season, I can get 3 to 5 a week.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things that's occurring in our neighborhood. So it's impressive to see that is a big indicator. And you also have to, we're seeing right now, a lot of these, you know, the feral parrot populations that are running around here. We have some biologists watch different nest sites of kestrels, and they've got actual video. I think they have video and pictures of it, but they have a lot of data showing the parrots now are chasing the kestrels out of their nest sites. And so the kestrels their nesting sites have been destroyed or interrupted or taken over. And now the kestrels are having a hard time finding places to breed because they've got these parrots that are coming in there who outweigh these kestrels 3 times, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of interactions that occur in the wild, and especially with these non-endemic species in there. I mean, we have to make some decisions on whether or not we should, you know, rehab them and let them go, or just, if they get hurt, then they become indoor birds forever in an aviary or outdoor aviary, because they are not doing us any good. If you want to look at just some of our species of raptors and other birds.
Yeah. That's so. Are you guys? I think at the Bird of Prey Center, when I was doing stuff there, at one point you had turkey vultures in there, but are you involved at all with any of the other vultures or turkey vultures, or even the condor stuff? Is that something you've done at all?
We have never been involved with condors. That's a whole different group of people and a whole different world. We do have some trapping trapping turkey vultures, sorry. And what they are, they're birds that are non-releasable birds that are used to attract other turkey vultures down, so they can do research on turkey vultures by trapping turkey vultures, get the data, put a band on them, a wing band and stuff, and then let them go again. And so we keep some for the research part of our facility, and that's mostly through the Bloom, Pete Bloom's thing, and then Scott Thomas is the other one working with Jeff Kidd. So and the Audubon Society and stuff. There's a lot of people that help support the research on it, because, like I said, the turkey vultures are kind of like they're a strong indicator of what's going on in the world, and if they start having problems, there's something you need to look into. And so we keep a couple of those birds, and they got 3 squares and a cot, and they can't be released because they can't fly, they can't hunt on their own. So we make them work, and so they have to go out and look pretty and attract another vulture down.
Nice. That's interesting, because the vultures are pretty social. They're always hanging out together, flying around, feeding together, all that kind of stuff. That's an interesting concept. So what would you claim as like big success stories of the Bird of Prey Center? Is it just the sheer number of birds that you're doing, or do you have any any of those where you're like, yeah, that one was awesome, just really cool stuff?
Well, anytime you release an eagle, it's awesome just because they're so uncommon and they're so huge. Turkey, same way. I mean, we get a vulture that we can release is good, but like I've said before, the thrill and the best ones are the ones that fly away from me. So I think that's every one of them. I mean, it's cool when you get something like the little Phrygian sow we had, and we got to put him right back within 50 feet of where he was found, so he could join the migration and keep going. And that was really cool. And and when you release one of these birds up and you see somebody that's watching it, especially the territorial ones, and you release it and they go right back to their normal little niche and their little habitats and stuff, and especially when you have breeding birds and you're reintroducing another orphan bird into the nest site of the one that's already established. Because like in barn owls, we do that a lot, and you'll and most of the owls and hawks, they can try to do that, but you're getting one to take on an orphan that we don't have a nest site for. And when that happens and you see it succeed, at least for the time being, you see it succeed, I mean, that's a real good feeling. Really good. Yeah. So I mean, we've fixed and done a lot of cool things, but I'll tell you, overall the program is, when the bird flies away, that's the best feeling in the whole world. And when you see somebody release it or participate in its rehab and stuff, and it goes away, the face that they put on when you see this, and the happiness it brings to their heart is amazing.
Yeah, I when I first started, I got to release Peregrine, and it was an amazing experience. I've been a part of a few releases now. And, I was like, oh, maybe this will, the magic of this is going to wear off. It hasn't yet. I mean, you could hear it in Scott's voice. He's been doing it for, 30 plus years, and it's still there. So I think watching the bird fly away and watching people understand the impact that they can have on these birds. We've been talking this whole time how important these birds are as indicator species and how much influence, us as a society have on these birds and their habitat. And being able to teach people about that is so important. And doing these public releases, it supports us, but it also helps teach them about the importance and gives them that majesty of these birds. When I started, my 3-year-old son came to the center and, learned about fishing line, how birds can get tangled up in fishing line. And now whenever we go out, when him and I go out fishing or we're by a pond, he's working on making sure everything's cleaned up, and it's in his brain now. So, you could see the power of education and how it can lead to the future success of these birds. And I think, again, the importance is these birds show exactly how the ecosystem is operating, just like any apex predator. Vultures are scavenging on everything. So if that vulture population is having a problem, everything else in the ecosystem is going to have a problem. So I think it's really important. And It is really special when you get to release one of these birds back into the wild.
You know, it's funny. I'm sitting here in my office. You know, I do environmental work for a living. So, but right here, you can't see it, but on my shelf is a photo of me releasing a red-shouldered hawk with the Bird of Prey Center with my children. My son was 6 and my daughter was 4. And they're now 25 and 23. My daughter now works here doing human resources for the environmental stuff. And my son is an avid photographer that does a lot of nature photography, including raptors. He's always seeking out raptors for that kind of stuff. And it's an experience that is not forgotten. It literally is with you for the rest of your life. And I've always taught them too, you just got to pay attention. You're going to see this stuff if you know what you're looking for, you know. And I remember it was a couple years ago. I was at a gas station. I was putting gas in my car, and I'm sitting there. There's all these people putting gas in their car, and a Cooper's hawk came screaming through the gas station and annihilated a pigeon, like right there. I'm the only one that saw it. I was like, what? Like, how does nobody see this? They're all doing it. They're on their phones or they're pumping their gas or they're doing whatever. And I'm just like, some really cool nature thing, total predator, just totally annihilated that animal, took it and flew away with it. And it just happened in the middle of this totally urban situation. But when you get to release one and you get to understand, you get that education piece, that's when all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just saw that. And you start paying attention to what's going on around you in the environment. And it starts to come to life. And then you just teach people a little bit more. Like, by the way, if you want to see it more, look here. Pay attention to this spot. Pay attention to that spot. If you're driving down the freeway, the red-tailed hawks are on they're all over the place on light poles. You can see them, And we now in Orange County, there's bald eagles that are now residents. We have some resident golden eagles, which are really hard to see, but they do pop in every now and then. But the bald eagles, I saw one on the light pole on the freeway going down to Newport Beach. And then I saw one in Upper Newport Bay, just sitting in a tree. And I'm like, okay. I actually stopped and took a picture out my car window of it because it's not something you see all the time. But if you know what you're looking for, if you're educated, then you appreciate those things and you see it more. And I think that's part of the education of it.
And I think that's where we come in, right? And we can be that first spark for these kids. I don't think every kid's going to become a vet or a biologist, but if they can get a spark where they start to recognize the world around them and how they can interact with them, it's going to lead to them have better consciousness. It's going to lead to them being better stewards of the environment, appreciating what's around them. Like with you guys at IRC, we're in Orange County, but people don't even know what's behind them up in the hills.
Right?
And I think that's so important to be able to tell the story that we live in this, densely populated area, but there's so much out here to explore and learn about. And I think that's where, organizations like ours and experiential organizations that teach kids about the ocean, that teach kids about the mountains, or teach them about leadership even, it can spark them in a way that teaches them there's another way to learn. It's not all within 4 walls. It's not going to school and then going home and then going to school and then going home. There's a whole nother world out there that they can learn from by just looking around. And I think the spark is there. It's just somebody to put it in their face and say, hey, here it is.
Yeah. It was funny. I mean, my background is also strongly environmental education. I ran the Inside the Outdoors program for 13 years, and we were doing 130,000 kids a year, and it was great. And I used to actually teach in juvenile hall, and I would take the birds of prey from the Birds of Prey Center into jail. And these kids, these are inner city kids, and they're gang member kids, and their life, they had no idea the stuff's even here. And there was a couple kids that were in for quite a period of time, and I had seen them over and over and over again, and they were getting out, and they saw me, and they're like, hey man, like, thanks for changing the way I look at the world. And I was just like that right there is it. That's perfect.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like, they didn't think about any of the stuff because they just weren't exposed to it. They didn't see it. Their environment didn't support it. And getting those opportunities, even kids you think, may not be interested, they are. You know, it doesn't take a lot to convince them, especially when you stand a foot away from them with a great horned owl, you know, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
or an eagle, you know.
Predators are amazing, right?
Oh,
Predators are something that instantly is going to attract somebody. You know, a songbird's great, and you know they can be pretty colors and make great sounds, and you know fully appreciate them. But you're going to get somebody's attention when you have a red-tailed hawk or an eagle or an owl on the glove. And I think that's what's great about the birds of prey. But like you were saying, you know, I used to work at the Ocean Institute before this, and you know we would bring in Title I schools to do these programs. And we'd have kids from San Juan Capistrano in 5th, 6th grade that had never seen the ocean.
Yeah.
7 miles away. They didn't have the opportunity to get out there. And, you know, they probably watched a YouTube video about the ocean at one point, but they didn't realize how close they were, how they can access it, and how important it is. And I think reaching everybody's really important, but the ones that don't have the resources, that's the one that's going to make that extra change.
Nice. So, like, when you talk about expanding the Bird of Prey Center and you're talking about, you know, your amphitheater, obviously, if you can put 300 people in there and do various shows with them and education programs with them, like, where do you want to go with that? Like, how far? I mean, obviously, it takes resources and it takes time, it takes money, it takes staffing, you know, all these kinds of things. But, you know, we're talking to, you know, we're in Orange County, California. There's 3.5 million people that live here. And, you know, it's about trying to, I mean, you're not going to touch them all, but, you know, maybe creating, you know, people. I'm a big fan of taking something and creating a bunch of people who create more of those people, right? So environmental stewards in Orange County, when I first started at where I am now with the Irvine Ranch Conservancy, we had a bunch of people that were doing stuff with us, volunteers and things, but they were almost all recreation based. And we started looking around and we were like, okay, we need a stewardship constituency in Orange County. And it can't be the environmental activist community. The activist community is great. They've done a whole lot of stuff of saving a lot of things, but they're a different group of people than someone who comes in and says, yeah, I'm going to go out there and weed that area with you. I'll do that. And it took us many years to kind of develop that group of stewardship-oriented volunteers within our own organization. And now we have hundreds of them. And they're doing stuff all over the place. And they're monitoring raptor nests. We have, in the areas that we manage, we have trained volunteers that get assigned to a nest spot. And they go out and they monitor the progress of them. And that supports the data that goes into Pete Bloom's stuff. It goes into the rehab, you know, the bird information and all that kind of stuff. And it's just interesting. And so with the Bird of Prey Center and you're expanding and you're creating these opportunities, do you have any plans to kind of help create more ambassadors that then go out into the community? Or
well, I think with the expansion, the community gets built, right? You start bringing in more people, you need more resources, you need more ability to reach more people. So I think as we continue to grow, more of those things are going to come to light. I think IRC is a great example of how that can build, though. And being able to partner with organizations like IRC, OC Parks, with, you know, different school districts, we're going to expand that community more. If that's in, you know, in partnering with biologists and doing more research and conservation efforts, that expands a program in a whole nother area. Education program, training programs, animal handling, animal care. I think the ability to reach more people is going to open us up to be able to have more people be part of our community. And I think these birds can build that community, right? It all starts with the birds.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see how many doors it opens along the way. But yeah, I think we're in the early stages, which is a lot of fun. Going to be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into this over the next couple of years. But I'm excited to see how far we can build that community. And to be honest, I don't know how far we can right now, but I think that's good because it doesn't kind of put a cap on it either.
That's awesome. A funny story, like for me, I've been doing environmental stuff for, I don't know, Scott, I've been doing it now for over 30 years. Right. it really started with the raptor at the schoolyard down the street from my house that I grew up in, my grade school. One of the neighbors was a falconer, and he was out there flying his bird, and I was hooked. I was like, yep, that's I'm into that kind of stuff. And I ended up doing a lot of stuff with raptors, obviously, with you guys, the Bird of Prey Center. My best friend, who we used to go bird watching, we used to go to the pet store, buy mice, and feed the kestrels at the schools, and that's what we did for fun. And then he ended up being a wildlife biologist, and he was the lead biologist for the condor program for many years. And so I've jumped on a condor a couple of times, which it took 3 of us to jump on a condor. So wow. I grabbed the feet, someone grabbed the head, the other person bear hugged it, so it wouldn't beat the snot out of you. So, but we've done a lot of stuff, and it's been a lot of fun with that. And it all came down to, it was a raptor that, for me, that triggered my entire career on everything I was doing. So still doing.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. I mean, for me, it's the same thing. I grew up in southern New Jersey, in a little bit of a rural area, but right on a little river. And all growing up, we never saw eagles. We see an osprey here and there. And then one day I was just sitting in the backyard, and a bald eagle swooped down, grabbed a fish right out of the river. And I'm just like, oh, that's amazing. And then I started learning and researching more and more about them, learning about how, the population's starting to come back from all the use of DDT and everything like that. And this is, the early 90s. And it just kind of sparked my interest in birds. And I was just back over Christmas, and it looks like you're in Alaska almost. There's eagles everywhere. So it's amazing to see that. But like you said, a raptor sparked my interest in that. It sparked my interest in learning more about them and learning more about, education with them. And, I think in Orange County, we have so many people down here. We can be that resource for people to take that next step. Because again, they're going to see these birds. That one time you see a bald eagle in Newport, all of a sudden you get that spark. You're going to go online. You have these resources. They find us. They find out how they can volunteer with us. They find out where we're going and the different programs we're doing. And then that just grows forever. You never lose that spark once it's there, I feel like. Awesome.
So there's a couple things. You had mentioned DDT, and we keep talking about indicator species. And are you able to explain kind of the whole DDT thing and what happened with that? Do you know enough about that?
You talking about him or me?
I'm going to let you take that one, Scott. You're going to know more than I do.
Well, I know probably the general crux of it is that DDT caused thinning of the eggshells and damage to the eggshells, and that resulted in a lot of birds having failures at their nest sites. So they would, sit on their egg or turn the egg over, and the shells were so fragile they would just break, and then the embryo would die, and that was it. And one of the things that they did, and this is some of the work that I helped with on Santa Catalina Island, and same thing that Winston Vickers did, and Peter Sharp and all these other people, is that, you go to places that don't have DDT, and you grab an egg out of the nest as they're laying it. And if they lay 2 eggs in their nest, you take one early, they'll replace it. So you take one of those eggs out, and then they'll lay a 3rd egg. And so we let those parents raise those 2 and hatch them. Like in a place in Alaska, they'll do this. Then they'll hand raise this baby egg. They'll incubate it, raise it up, and transfer it as give it a jump start, so to speak, and then put it in with another nest that's in an area that has fragile eggs. Or you'll take the whole egg down there and just put it down there and let them incubate. And there's different techniques that were used, and some work better than others. So that's they would hone that to the individual needs. But that was what the DDT thing did, and it's just like mercury in our fish and other things that are toxic or detrimental. There's just apex predators are the ones that die from it or suffer from it. So now that would be the big thing on DDT, is that it did directly hit them right at home, right in we're not going to be able to reproduce anymore because we have DDT in our eggs. And so this was a way to get around that. And so we maintained that genetic line down here. And now they don't do that anymore. As far as there's no projects going on that support line right now for a number of reasons, but at least it's not as bad as we used to have it.
Yeah, and I think seeing the bald eagle in Newport Beach, and I know we've had nests out by Irvine Lake and and that kind of stuff. And I think those are direct descendants of those recovered eagles on Santa Catalina Island that were from that DDT project of trying to offset the effects of the DDT. And it was that way with the peregrine falcons too, wasn't it? It was the Peregrine Fund stepped in and started doing stuff and
protecting them. Yes, that's true. There was a lot of these species are intermingled, and a lot of the same principles were applied to other ones in such a way that they were able to maintain or help recover certain species from becoming eliminated from the habitat that they grew up in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So another question that came to mind when we were speaking is, and I remember I would get this all the time. What should someone do if they find an injured raptor? What do I do?
You can do it. I can do it real easy. Is that Dan just practiced this the other day.
It'll for the rest of his life. It's going to be there.
Yeah, he called me up after he'd already had animal control there, which was the smart thing to do. You call animal control. Your local animal control is networked with all the organizations that deal with whatever species of animals on the road or in your backyard or on the ground or in your attic. So if you contact your animal control, they will come down and help you. And sometimes these animal control officers have been trained by a lot of the biologists and a lot of us, saying that this is just a baby that's on the ground learning how to fly. So, we can put it in a box and attach that box high up in a tree as high as you can and put the baby in there. The parents will take care of it. They don't care if you touched it, but it's also dangerous, because you can get footed really badly. Some of these owls and hawks, they can hurt you. And when you're messing with one of their babies, it's like getting between a adult bear and a baby bear. You get between those two and the mom's going to take you out or the dad's going to take you out, and they will hit you sometimes. So it is best to let the experts take a look at it. And if they don't know, if the animal control officers can't make a decision, then they bring them into us and they or talk to us, and we find a solution to the problem they have. And sometimes it's as simple as we'll hold on to it for 5 to 7 days in a little flight cage, make sure it's fat and happy and and learned how to move its wings better and fly a little bit more, and then we'll just take it right back to the same nest site and put it back in the nest. And that's probably the best thing to do, but it's not always a simple quick fix on any of these things. But your animal control, that's your lifeline. That's who you call, and then they are networked. And if you have a raccoon, you have a fox, you have a bird of prey, you have a sparrow, they know who to take it to. We even have a person that takes care of hummingbirds in this area. And that's, she's a specialist in hummingbirds, and that's what she does.
That's awesome. And that question, I still to this day get, people call me and they're like, "Hey, what should I do with this?" I got this, I got that, I found this. What should I do? And usually they want to give it to me, and I'm like, no, here, make a phone call.
That's what happened to me the other day. My neighbor just 2 houses down from me called me, and there's an owl acting weird sitting on my trash can right now. And that's, Scott and I were talking about. It was, to be honest, it's kind of funny that it's one of my first experiences with an injured raptor in the wild was 3 months after I started working at the Bird of Prey Center. So, it was
meant to happen.
And that bird, by the way, is up at the Bird Center now.
I know. I saw him yesterday, actually. So it seems like he's doing pretty good. So
just so everybody knows, everything that comes into the Bird Center gets triaged through the Serrano Animal and Bird Hospital. That's where I work. And so everything gets triaged there. And then from there, it's evaluated. And as soon as it's ready to go into flight cages and stuff like that, is when we ship it up there. But all the medicine, surgery, all the other care and stuff like that to get them to a flying stage is done at the animal hospital.
Scott, in the past, I had seen some of your plans for the Bird of Prey Center, and you had full hospital facilities at the center. Is that still a plan, or is that?
Yes, okay. It is a plan. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Something where we could do.
What's that? Phase 4 of the expansion project.
Phase 4?
Yeah.
The only thing I have to tell him is I'm getting old, man, and I want to see stuff happen. So we're working as fast as we can.
And that brings up, if anybody wants to support us, visit Orange County or OCBoPC.org, and you can see how you can donate and help us reach Phase 4 even quicker.
Yeah, that was actually one of my, how do people get involved? Can they volunteer? Can they donations obviously are, top priority because you are mostly a volunteer organization. So you're running on, you want your donations to go to these expansion projects so you can grow, so, but go if they can find all they want at the Orange County Bird of Prey Center.org or
OCBPC.org.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're a primarily volunteer-run organization. We have 3 full-time staff members, and that's only been about 3 years that we've had paid staff. So it's been pretty much a volunteer-run organization. We have about 60 volunteers right now. We have a new volunteer orientation. I believe we have 26 people signed up for that. Not all of them stick with it for the whole time, but
Yep.
It's a great way to get involved. It's a great way to learn. The thing that blew me away more than anything was how passionate our volunteers are. I've got an opportunity to meet with them while they're, working and cleaning the cages and doing this work that's, not exactly glamorous. Some people think, oh, Bird of Prey Center, I'm just going to get to hang out with a or with a red-tailed hawk all day. It's not exactly the most glamorous thing, but it's the stuff that needs to get done to make sure these birds are taken care of well.
Yeah.
And the enthusiasm and the excitement our volunteers have and the camaraderie they have is absolutely amazing. We've done a couple of fun little barbecues, opportunities for them to get involved with the public, and it's been really special getting to know them. So if you visit OCBPC.org, you click on our volunteer link. We do 2 new volunteer trainings per year, and then trainings for our existing volunteers throughout the year. So you can find ways to get involved there. And then you can also, again, donations are what help keep us going. It helps us feed the birds. It is not cheap to keep these birds well fed. Our education birds and the birds that were released back into the wild, we need to make sure they're happy, healthy, and they're ready to go so they can have that upper leg or upper wing when they set off into the sky again. So it's not cheap to be able to do that, but it's, really important. So anyway, anybody wants to contribute, we're happy to talk. If they want to reach out, my email's on the website, and I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to learn more about what we do.
So when you talk about education birds, what species? So let's say I'm, the general public, and I hear this podcast, and I'm like, this is super cool. Maybe I'll attend one of their education things to check it out. So what are they going to see if they for the education birds?
Yeah, one of the most consistent programs that we have is actually going to the ranch in Laguna Beach. We're there almost every Saturday from 11 till noon. And we do programs there. So you'd get a chance to meet some of our education birds and our volunteers there. So if you're looking for a way to meet us really quickly and consistently, that's one of the best places you can go. As far as education birds, we have, Western screech owl, great horned owl, red-tailed hawk, kestrel, peregrine falcon, which is my son's favorite right now because it's the fastest thing in the world.
My favorite bird ever.
Oh yeah, everybody loves a peregrine. I still do.
Yeah.
And we have a bald eagle as well that we take out to programs.
Nice.
So we've got a great variety. Scott, did I miss any there?
No, I think you did well. The bald eagle's from one of the islands, the Channel Islands, and was part of that reintroduction process, but got injured and ended up permanently in captivity.
Yeah. So all of our education birds, they were all birds that wouldn't have survived out in the wild. So, our goal is any bird that comes, we get them back out into their native habitat. But sometimes for whatever reason, whether it's eye injury or neurological injuries or something that would prevent them from surviving or being able to hunt and really flourish out in the wild, they can become education birds with us. And one of the things that I really love, and we're going to start highlighting a little bit more in some of our press and, our social media, is we work with a couple different organizations and actually supply birds for education programs. We have birds at the OC Zoo, who Scott works really closely with. We have a great horned owl at Aquarium of the Pacific. We work with Inside the Outdoors and a few other organizations as well. So we want to be able to tell the birds' stories through social media and a few other outlets as well. So that's something we're going to be working on to give people, another avenue where they can find us easily and learn more about these birds.
That's awesome. So if I'm a public person, I'm going to the ranch, and is that on your website, like that you guys are there all the time?
Yep. That is on our website, and we're looking at a few other programs right now. I know we're going to be doing a couple programs with IRC coming up, and then more programs more consistently with OC Parks. So, we're going to have that center on site, and we'll get that open to the public in a little bit here. But for right now, the best chance to follow us online, visit the website, go on social media, and we'll keep posting people and letting them know where we're going.
Well, and as you mentioned, we're going to start doing some work together, and I'm here to assist and help you and offer things. We have the Let's Go Outside website that we put stuff on, but so do other environmental nonprofits throughout Orange County.
Yeah.
And, if you want people to get exposed to this, we can put your stuff on there. And, we have like 40,000 visitor accounts on there, and our page views each month are really, really high. So,
yeah, and I mean, that's definitely one of my big goals is the next year is making sure more people know about who we are and what we're doing and why it's important. So expanded outreach is going to be key for that. And having partners like you guys, I mean, the Let's Go Outdoors is an absolutely amazing resource for anything. I think we've talked about education a lot here, and that's a great resource for anybody trying to find something to get people outside. We have a lot of opportunities in Orange County that people don't know are there, and that's a great spot for them to find those. Yeah.
So I'm putting that out there. If you want to use it, let me know.
I appreciate that, Dave. We'll be in touch about that for sure.
So, fellas, this Friday afternoon, this is probably the least amount of talking I've ever done on an episode.
I know,
I love
really
that. You guys did. Yeah, I got to sit back and let you guys do it. But this for anybody else who's like me, like, oh my gosh, I want to become a falconer. I want to become a robiner or whatever it is. Just go check out these guys. Here's the resources one more time. There's the Orange County Bird of Prey Center, and then there is the Irvine Ranch Conservancy. There's some other things that have been mentioned, but if you just check there, you're going to be able to link over to the other things and look around. This is great. I've really enjoyed you guys coming on. Just real quick, each of you guys, I'll bring you on the main screen. Just tell me what your final thoughts are, and then we'll wrap it up and get back on to Friday. So, Scott, why don't you set us off with your last words?
My final thoughts are respect nature, work with the government agencies that have to moderate all this, and try to enjoy wildlife and leave the smallest footprint of damage you can. And when you see them up in the sky, watch them, and watch on the ground too, because there's lots of animals around here and they're all over the place. And if you start opening your eyes and walking through the environment with an open eye and an open mind, you'll see so much that you didn't even realize was still there. And it was always there, you just didn't see it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's take a pause and look around. There's so many amazing things out there that are going to get you excited about the world that's around you. There's more to learn just in your backyard and than you could ever imagine. So take a minute and look around and appreciate it.
Dave?
You want me to? All right. For anyone listening to this, I encourage you to get involved. Give back to the environment, give back to the community, volunteer for stuff, donate money to things, and these are really important for the ecological health of the place that we live in, and be stewards of the land and be stewards of the creatures that live on the land. And so don't be a user, be someone that gives back. And I think that's really important, and I push that all the time. Everyone's like, I'm a user group. No, how about you be a partner?
I love it. I think it's great. All right, let me wrap this up. I'll think about you guys. Everybody else, I'll see you on Monday.